Polycarp. This is your APTN News Brief for Monday, January 29th. A Winnipeg hotel continues to draw fire for its treatment of an Indigenous woman, an incident captured on video that went viral. And as Tamara Pimentel reports, it's all sparked a larger conversation about the safety of Indigenous people in the city.
This video taken Christmas Day resurfaced online. An Indigenous woman restrained by staff at the Marboro Hotel. It raised questions of the treatment of Indigenous people in Winnipeg. In 2014, 26-year-old Colton Pratt was last seen at the Marboro. He's been missing ever since, and for his mom, Lydia Daniels, the video brought back a wave of emotions.
And it triggered me and brought me back to that first few days where he went missing. So it's been pretty tough. And the last thing I said to him, I said, I am worried about you. Be careful. And then he said, I know, Mom.
Hotel staff and Winnipeg police say the woman in the video was restrained for brandishing a knife. Using zip ties was justified, according to police. The woman has been charged with assault with a weapon. She also faces the same charge from an incident that happened in September 2023. The video and history of the Marboro sparked a lot of anger and tension between the hotel and the Indigenous community. In 2013, 2 Winnipeg men faced prostitution charges after police broke up an alleged brothel operating out of 2 hotels, one of which was the Marboro. But the current staff say they are getting threats. The hotel is temporarily closed. In a statement, the general manager told APTN this is extremely unsettling to our staff and management who fear for their safety. For now, the doors are closed and Winnipeg police are investigating. Tamara Pimentel, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Returning to the inquest into the 2022 mass stabbings on James Smith Cree Nation and nearby Weldon, Saskatchewan, testimony by the province's chief forensic pathologist closed out last week's proceedings. With that and more, Rachel May.
Filled with information that was hard to hear. Chief Forensic Pathologist Sean Latham provided insight into the deaths of Robert Sanderson, Carol Burns, Earl Burns, Thomas Burns, and Wesley Pedersen. Latham explained times of death, toxicology reports, and injuries sustained. We also heard from Diane Rain of Correctional Services Canada. She was Miles Sanderson's parole officer for around 2 months. She described him as an average offender, an active and helpful participant in prison programs. Miles Sanderson killed Brian Buggy Burns' wife Bonnie and son Gregory, whom we'd heard about yesterday. His reaction is typical of community members observing the inquest.
I would like to see more programming, revise the programming, add more programming to it.
Chelsea Stonestand is a band member. She has standing at the inquest, meaning she's allowed to cross-examine witnesses. She says there needs to be better communication between all agencies.
It often circles back to what they can extract from the community and not what they can put back into our communities.
The inquest will continue Monday and Tuesday with more from elders and the National Parole Board of Canada. Rachel May, APTN National News, Melfort, Saskatchewan.
Researchers in Ottawa hope to make a dent in Nunavut's high tuberculosis rates. Known as the Taima TB Wastewater Study, it will focus on the capital city of Iqaluit over the next 5 years. Northern Inuit experience TB rates as much as 300 times higher than non-Indigenous populations. Rob Delatola is with the Department of Civil Engineering at the University of Ottawa. He says with rapidly improving technology in wastewater testing, he and other researchers hope to track and prevent more such diseases in remote communities.
So I think this is an application of wastewater-based surveillance for maybe health inequities, where you kind of see a community that has, in this case, that are experiencing hundreds-fold higher rates of TB than non-Indigenous Canadians. But you can also look at this for pandemic preparedness. We know we went through or going through the COVID-19 pandemic, and we now understand that there's going to be another one. And so the idea of tracking or finding that next disease X.
Still in Nunavut, its lone MP Lori Idlot hopes a recently signed devolution agreement will bring more transparency for Inuit. Trevor Wright explains.
I definitely hope that with the government of Nunavut taking over decision-making for lands and resources, an aspect of that gives more information sharing to Inuit.
Nunavut NDP MP Lori Idlot hopes that decision-making on lands and resources will be more transparent under Nunavut's new devolution agreement. Idlout says that before the deal was struck, she was working on stronger legislation that would require resource companies and governments to consult in more meaningful ways with the territory.
I find that the duty to consult as a legal standard comes in too late. And I think that with UNDRIP and the importance of free, prior, and informed consent, that's what I was aiming to do with my bill. And I really hope that with the devolution agreement, that there's going to be serious considerations about how to keep Inuit informed when it comes to lands and resources and what to do with the marine environment as well.
Idlout is excited about the devolution agreement's human resources framework.
What I did notice that is unique with this devolution agreement is the investments that will be made for training. And the potential for that training to turn into employment. I'm very excited about those kinds of investments because Inuit do want to contribute. Inuit do want to learn to be able to adjust to whatever environment is around us.
Now that the agreement is signed, Idlout is looking to see more Inuit working in government and taking part in education and training programs. Trevor Wright, APTN National News, Iqaluit.
Now, of course, Nunavut wasn't the first Northern Territory to sign a devolution deal. That would be the Yukon. Here with her look back on that 2-decade-old agreement, Sarah Connors.
Devolution is defined as the transfer of power from a large central government to smaller, more localized regions of power. It's something former Council of Yukon First Nations Grand Chief Ed Schultz is passionate about. He advocated for the territory to be the first to sign its own devolution agreement in 2003.
Quite frankly, it was the First Nations who caused devolution.
He says devolution couldn't have happened without the umbrella final agreements a decade prior. In 1993, Canada, Yukon government, and the Council signed the agreements. This set the ball rolling for 11 of the territory's 14 First Nations to settle their individual final agreements and become self-governing under Canada's Constitution.
The treaties came first. That was the prerequisite, right? You had to have the treaties. The treaties gave the leverage.
This is one of the most phenomenal political transitions in Canadian history.
Indigenous governance professor Ken Coates says devolution in the territory has been largely successful. He says Nunavut should take notice, especially as devolution hasn't altered the importance of Indigenous governments in the Yukon.
The Indigenous governments had a lot of authority dealing with Ottawa. Now they have a lot of authority dealing with the local territorial government. Yukon has learned that very, very well. And I think it's one of the most important and most impressive elements in the transition.
Schultz says devolution has helped put the power of the territory in the hands of its own people.
And you have this package of local communities, local people having more say and ability over their own backyard, who plays there, who doesn't, and if you do, here's the rules.
Sarah Connors, APTN National News, CarMax.
And that's your APTN News Brief for Monday, January 29th. I'm Rick Harp.